Welcome to Ghost Tales. I'm Ashley Knight, your host with Wavy TV 10. This show centers around just spooky encounters that people have had, haunted places, and just interesting things about the paranormal. Here with me today is Maddy Laing. She's the program and events coordinator with Virginia Beach Office of Cultural Affairs, also with the Virginia Beach History Museum, also with the Thoroughood House. You've got a lot of things under your belt.
Yes, we have lots of things that we do, but we really enjoy it, and I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Thank you so
Yep.
much for being here. So, talk a little bit about your role. What exactly is it you do for Virginia Beach History Museum?
Yeah, so I'm the program and events coordinator. So I handle all of our public programs. So any events that you come to at our museums, I coordinate those. Also handle some of our private rentals and private tours as well at the museum. So any sort of events, weddings, parties, those sorts of things, as well as handle our ticketing website. So I do lots of different things depending on the day and the week. So
You do it all.
yes, a little bit of
Yes.
everything. Yeah.
Yes. And talk a little bit about how long have you been in this role?
Yeah, so I've been in this role for almost 3 years now. I have about 5 or 6 years of museum experience. I really love it. And I love all things Virginia history. So this is a really great role. We have some fantastic museums that we operate and organize, and it's really a great way to connect to local history.
Right. We've got the Adam Thorogood House,
Mhm.
or now we just call it the
Yes,
Thorogood
the
House.
Thorogood
Yes.
House.
And the Lynn Haven House.
Mhm.
And what else?
And we have our Francis Land House, as well as our Princess Anne County Union Council High School Training School Museum. And that's located inside Renaissance Academy. So three of them are historic house museums, and that one is a gallery style museum at the site of the first African American high school here in Virginia Beach. So,
All
yeah.
right,
So those are the
neat.
four that we operate, but we also work very closely with a number of other city owned museums like Surf and Rescue at the ocean front, Virginia MoCA as well. So those are some of our great collaborators and partners in the city of Virginia Beach.
Awesome. And so today we're talking about the Thorogood House.
Yes.
And I interviewed you for a special report that I did last October, about haunted places in Hampton Roads. And we had so much fun that I
Yes.
thought I'd bring you on the show again. And we'll
Yeah.
talk some more about it.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the history of the Thorogood House. Even though it was called the Adam Thorogood House, it wasn't built by Adam Thorogood, was it?
Yes. So our Thorogood House, which we now know dates to about 1719, was originally thought to be Adam Thorogood's house, which he arrived. He's credited with being the first person to settle the city back when it was known as Princess Anne County. He arrived here in 1635 and took advantage of a system called the headright system, where he brought over a number of English settlers, and he got a certain amount of acreage of land for every person he brought over. So he's largely credited with settling this area. However, we know now, thanks to dendrochronology, which is dating the wood that was used to construct the house, that it couldn't have been the trees could not have been felled before 1700. So we know that it dates to about 1719, as well as some architectural features that are present on the house as well, which if you come see us when we're open, you can definitely take a look at those in person. So yeah.
Yes, I highly recommend going and checking out this house because it is really, I mean, aside from the spookiness of it, it is a really neat house, and it's a really neat
Yes.
history to go and learn about this, because this is like the one of the oldest surviving colonial homes in Virginia
Yes.
Beach,
Yes.
or as it was then, Princess Anne County,
Yes.
which is now present day Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
That's really neat. So, do you love talking about the architecture and
I
everything that
do.
when
I
people
love
come up to
talking
see it?
about just all things history, local history, and just different pieces. It's really interesting to see how the area has changed and how it got developed, and just how the area has come a long way over the centuries as
Yeah.
well.
And there
Yeah.
is a residential area around. I mean, you have to drive through a neighborhood to get
Yes.
to the Thorogood House.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of surprising
It is.
to be such a historic
Yeah.
monument, and you have to drive through people's backyards basically to
It's a
get to
really
it.
wonderful neighborhood. It's beautiful back there if you've not been there. But it's interesting to think about because originally all of that property from the Thorogood neighborhood all the way to Shore Drive was originally owned by Adam Thorogood. And sort of as the decades went on, they sold pieces of it off and it got smaller and smaller. And then, of course, the house was ceased to be lived in up until the 20th century when it was taken over by different restoration projects and things, and then eventually was turned into a museum by the Chrysler. And then when city lines changed back in, I think it was like sometime in the mid 20th century,
Mhm.
it came to ownership to Virginia Beach, and we've had it ever since. So
When did it
yeah.
become a museum?
I believe in like it was bought by a lady named Grace Keeler in the 1920s. And then all the way up until the 50s and later half of the 20th century was restored in different things. And then eventually, sometime between like the 1950s and 2000, it was turned into a museum by the Chrysler Museum, owned it for a while. But yeah, until those city lines changed because it was originally Norfolk and now it's Virginia Beach.
Okay. I
Yeah.
did not know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to we've had a great many ghost sightings on
Yes.
this property
Yes.
and lots of tales, lots of and you guys even host a ghost walk or ghost tour
Yes, we
every
do.
year.
Yes.
And it's more than one, correct? More
Yeah,
than
we
one ghost?
offer 6 nights in total, and then we tell there's quite a few ghost stories that we tell, and sometimes we add things because some of our guests or our staff have experiences, which we have added a few things. This will be the fourth year that we're doing them, and we have added stories of different encounters that people have had. Into
Oh,
our
that'll be
stories. So
fun.
they kind of change year to year depending, and even night to night, because we'll talk, oh, somebody had this really great experience the night before. But we talk a little bit about different histories, stuff that we don't normally talk about on our daily tour.
Gotcha. Okay, we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. For right now, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break, and we'll talk more about the tours and about those stories that we're hearing about. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Ghost Tales. We are here with Maddy Laing talking about the Thorogood House. And this is, I recommend everybody go see this Thorogood House. It is really, really neat. I mean, you have to drive through Thorogood neighborhood to get to it, but it is really something special. So, talk a little bit about, we were just talking about the ghost tours that you guys have. We've got some pictures of the folks that you will see during these tours. Talk a little bit about how these tours operate and who you have touring or leading the tours.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a program that we run the last 2 full weekends in October, Friday, Saturday, Sunday from 6 to 9. Your tour is about 30 minutes long, and we take you through the actual historic house and the property after nightfall. So it's quite spooky.
Very spooky.
Yes, and we give you our guides are actually all employed from Zyder's American Dream Theater in Virginia Beach, and
And
they are
they really
one.
like getting into it,
They
right?
get so into it. If
Yeah.
you've come before and you've had a guide like Kathy or Jackie, they're amazing, and they really bring an extra element of storytelling and theatrical element to it. And they also they know the history and the stories as well, because it's really a great collaborative partnership between the museums and Zyder's Theater. So we're really happy to have them every year.
Really neat.
Yes.
Yeah, we like that. So you brought us some
I
props
did,
today.
yes. So
Talk
these
about what you've brought.
So these are a couple things that if you come take a tour with us, you'll get to actually use these. So this is called a gauze beater, and they read EMF readings. So you turn it on, and it might go a little crazy in here because it's electromagnetic fields, and we've got lots of equipment here. Um, but the idea is lots of spirits put out different electrical pulses or radiate energy. And so in our historic house and on our property, there's very little technology. And they don't consistently spike. So we give these out to people on our tour to sort of monitor while we're talking about different stories. And they do kind of fluctuate every night. They kind of react differently, even though it's the same tour route every night. So their job on the tour is to let their guide know if it's going red, because that means something is definitely there. So those are really fun. So you get these when you go on a tour with
Cool.
us.
So you know if it goes in the red, something's going on.
Yeah,
Someone
something's
is you're not
funky.
alone.
Yes. And then we also have we have these little this is called a witch bottle. This is an empty one, but normally you have things in there. But these were from the period 18th century. They're very rare in America, but we actually have one on display at the Thorogood House, an authentic witch bottle in our gallery that you can see. But we give you these with some ingredients to take home with you. So in case you need some protection. But the idea was if you thought you were being cursed or hexed by a witch, that you would use this to trap them. So traditionally, you would put some sort of nails or herbs in here to capture the witch, and then also some sort of bodily element like your fingernails, or sometimes they would even put urine in these bottles. And the idea would be that the witch was attracted to your fingernails or your hair or whatever. And then she would get sucked into the bottle and get trapped by the nails, and she wouldn't be able to get out. So now it's just kind of a fun superstition thing. But
And then what would
yes.
people do with the bottles after? Because I'm sure you don't want a bottle of urine.
We tell them to put water or oil in there instead, maybe a little more sanitary. But take it home with you, and you can put it in your kitchen, in your garden, at your front door. Traditionally, they would have buried these. That's how our witch bottle, it was found over in sort of the Kemp's Landing area.
So this was
in the
something that
ground.
people actually did back
Traditionally
in the...
more in Europe. You don't see them as much here in America. They're very rare. But it was definitely a superstition that, you know, it was very common for people to think that if your crops were going bad, or if your livestock was getting sick and dying, it was common that maybe a witch is in town and she's mad at you or something, because they didn't understand everything as we understand it today. So sometimes that was a bit of a superstition.
And so they had to take things into their own hands.
Yes.
And this is how they did it.
Yes. So yeah.
And what are the,
so
what do you call those?
These are called dowsing rods. Traditionally, they're used to find water underground, but they react similar to the gauge meter to different electrical frequencies or magnetics in the earth. And this is something that we added to. One of our storytellers used them one year, and people loved it, and it was really fun. So we said, why don't we, use those on every tour? And we do often sell these as well. So if you are so inclined and you want to continue your ghost hunting, you can grab a pair of these after your tour. But the idea is these are copper ones, and there are a couple different ones, but you want to make sure that you've grounded yourself. I don't know if the camera can see. Maybe I'll do it on this side. There we go. Yeah. And so you want to make sure that you ask a grounding question when you're talking to your spirits to make sure you've got them straight. And you want to say cross for yes, open for no. Then you can ask a yes or no question. Are there any spirits with us today? Anyone want to talk to us today? Sometimes they move and sometimes they don't.
Right.
But they react crazy in the historic house. But you'll see them like open, and I'm doing this, or close. And sometimes
well, it's good to know that our Wavy studio is not haunted right now.
No paranormal.
We have no paranormal activity right now.
But they're quite fun, and people really get a kick out of them. So it's kind of like old school ghost hunting.
Yeah. And are those, what else is that?
So I have these are some stickers. I couldn't bring the actual beasties with me because they stay at our historic house. But we have these two little guardians, the owl and the squirrel. And these are something that we have out in our garden, and they're made of wood. But the idea is they stand out on little poles in our garden, and they keep the spirits out of the historic house. So if they're facing out, that means they're protecting things from getting in. But if they are turned and facing the house, that means they might be trying to keep bad things in the house. So we always tell our visitors, make sure you watch the beasties, that they don't flip directions.
They don't turn on you.
We have these cute little stickers. And the owl is the guardian of the night, and the squirrel is the guardian of the day.
I love that.
And these are fun. We have those if you need extra protection on your car or your laptop or something like that. But they're just cute little
They're portable.
stickers. Yes.
Portable protection.
So that's another story that we talk about when we're outside in the gardens at nighttime.
Neat.
Yeah.
All right. Now, we talked about when I did the Haunted Hampton Road story, and I interviewed you. You mentioned this one story about one of the workers there. They brought their family for a tour. They were going through the house, and then they were closing up the house at the end of the tour, and one of the younger members of the family noticed something. Tell me more. Tell us that story again.
Yeah, so whenever we give tours of the Thoroughgood House, you'll go with a guide. And we generally, it's not like a free-flowing thing. So you all go in the house together, and you all leave the house together. And they were exiting the house, and everybody was accounted for of their tour party. And one of the younger girls that were on the tour was asking, why did you lock that man in the house? And they were like, what man? There was nobody else on that tour. It was just us. And she goes, no, that man wearing a funny brown coat. He was standing on the stairs, and he was watching us the whole time. And of course there was no man in a brown coat on the tour. So that freaked them out a little bit.
Moment,
yeah, a bit spooky. We've also had staff members here, like when it's the early in the morning when they're opening the house for the day, they had somebody say hello back to them one time.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and there was two of them, so they both heard it. It was quite scary. So
Wow.
different things like that. And we've had people who are sort of in tuned psychically, also say that they've felt things in the house and that there was some activity. And of course, we are on the National Register of Haunted Places in America as well, so officially haunted.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right. And I have also heard that people who live around there in the Thorogood neighborhood have experienced things. Have they shared those stories with you?
Yeah, so we've had the neighbors talk about after dark, and of course, there's no lights that stay on in the house
Uh-huh.
after we close.
Hold on just a
Okay.
second. We're going to wait until
Okay.
after the next commercial break to talk about that. So hold on. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Ghost Tales. I'm Ashley Knight, your host. Here with me is Maddy Laing. She is from the Thorogood House and a bunch of other places. I mean, you do Virginia Beach Museum, history museums, and a lot of other things. But we're talking today about the Thorogood House and the haunted stories that we're hearing from the neighbors, because it is a neighborhood, the Thorogood neighborhood, that surrounds this house. As over time the land has gotten sold and built and built on and built out. So talk about what some of the neighbors have told you they've experienced living around there.
Yeah, so like I said, after dark, there are houses all around the Thorogood House, and there's some even directly right across the street. If you've
Mm-hmm.
been there, you know. And we love the neighbors that live there. They come to our events, so we love to see them. But they've told us that there are some spooky things that happen as lights floating around in the front windows after night, a floating candlestick they've seen,
Oh, wow.
moving
And there are
from
no
room to
lights
room.
inside the
No,
Thorogood house.
not
Wow.
not after we leave. We turn everything off, and so that's been a story that's sort of passed down through a couple of decades and continues to kind of keep happening at different points.
Wow.
There's a couple other stories about a woman in a red dress that people have seen sort of jumping over the main gate, running up to the house or running away from the property. And there was some human remains found on the property back in the mid 20th century during when they were excavating for our parking lot that's there now.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of scary.
So we're parking over where someone was buried.
Not
That's
anymore. They're not there anymore, I don't think.
okay.
But yeah, but it's kind of interesting. And you think about these properties being very old, and of course they were working plantations, so you had enslaved people working on the property. And it didn't become a tradition in America to be buried in a graveyard until the 19th century, about 100 years after our
I
Thorogood
didn't
House
know
was built.
that.
Yeah, so you would
Wow.
live, you would be born, live, work, and die on the same property. And most people didn't travel within 25 miles of where they lived. It
Mhm.
wasn't very common for people to get out. So a lot of the times, especially with enslaved people, they would be buried with no markers or anything, and it was just sort of like a tradition that the family held. And then of course, when everything gets developed modern day, that's all lost. Particularly, like, this is like one of my rabbit holes, but in New York they have tons of unmarked graves, and there's a couple of monuments to the enslaved that were just lost. And the same thing happened down here in Virginia, of
Wow.
course.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And really quickly, I wanted to share something that I noticed when I went to the Thorogood House. When I've been there a couple times now, and I drive all through that neighborhood. It's kind
Hmm.
of winding. When you get closer to the Thorogood House, you hear crows.
Yes.
And this, you would think that the crows would kind of spread out throughout the neighborhood, but they don't. They stay like right there at that property right across from the house,
They
from the
do.
Thurgood, and that is the only place they congregate. And that's a spooky thing. When you get closer to this house, you start hearing crows,
Hmm.
and they're all just, they don't go anywhere else. They're
Especially in
just
the
right
fall.
there.
We do love it when they're out for ghost tours because it definitely adds an element. But
Yes.
especially in the fall, as like if you're there, they're so loud during the day. They're
Yes.
ridiculously loud. But they love to come and hang out by the house. And I don't know if they enjoy it or if it's something more supernatural happening.
Yeah, who's to say? All right, so talk about, we've got this Polaroid
Mhm.
picture that was taken by whom?
A former staff member snapped this at an
Okay.
event after hours or after sunset. Um, but you can see there's like an orb in the picture, so it's just
On the
particularly
left-hand
creepy.
side, is this like a
Yes.
bridge or is this
So this is at our Lynn Haven
walkway?
property, and this is like sort of a wood decking that goes down to our historic house. So what you're looking at is the walkway towards the historic house. Like in the distance is where that house is.
Okay, so we're looking
yeah.
towards the house.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's very dark on that property, so you can't never really see anything super well
When
after
was
after dark.
when was this taken?
A few years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago now, in the summertime, I believe.
And were they just like late after work one night?
They
or
were there for a program or an event, and they had a Polaroid camera, and they were taking pictures for fun.
Okay, just to
try
see what would happen. Yes.
Yeah,
And they
that's
obviously caught something.
kind of spooky ghost.
Yeah.
So
So do they have any idea? Did they feel anything, hear anything?
yeah, those staff members swore that it was haunted there. But I mean, my office is there because we have an education center, so I'm at the Lynn Haven house 5 times a week almost. And so I've only had one scary or I guess supernatural experience at our Lynn Haven house.
Okay,
One
tell us
time.
about that.
Yeah, so
When did this happen?
this was a year and a half ago. I don't know, sometime within the last 2 years.
Okay.
And we went out to the historic house with the museum's director and my supervisor, and we had a guest in town who was a historic preservationist. So we were showing him the house for those reasons, not for ghost reasons, but we were out there looking at the house and giving him a little tour. And we were asking him, we mentioned that we do a ghost tour program in October, and we were like, oh, what do you think? Do you believe in ghosts? And he's like, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't think any of that's real. It's just made up, blah, blah, blah. And we are standing downstairs, and we're the only 4 people in the house. And this really loud stomping, banging comes from upstairs in one of the rooms in the corner. Like, and there's no one else around. There's nobody else on the property. Like, I'm looking out the window. I'm like, because he goes, oh, that's just somebody banging on the window. And I'm like, I do not think so. And then our museum's director said that had happened before when she had taken the director of the aviation museum on a tour in the house. Like, he had said something
Wow.
about, they had talked about ghosts and there was banging. So that's the only supernatural experience
Wow.
I've had, but it freaked me out.
Did it sound like someone was stomping around
It sounded like
upstairs?
somebody was mad and like banging, like stomping on the floorboards upstairs, like really like 3 or 4 loud bangs. Yeah, and I went up there. Nothing was up there. There wasn't a squirrel, and we try our best to make sure there's no pests or anything. So yeah.
Did he change his mind after that? Did he say,
No.
"Oh no"?
He was like, somebody throwing stuff, and I'm like, there's nobody else here. It's just us. So.
Yeah.
That was definitely spooky. But
Oh,
I do
that's
think
spooky.
Lynn Haven is pretty spooky. But
Do you think it's spookier than the Thorogood House?
probably just because it's darker. And there's not as many houses around.
At
So if you're
nighttime?
there at night, it's a little spooky.
It's worse.
But yeah, for sure.
Okay. So where can people go to find out more information and sign up for these ghost walks?
Yeah, so if you go on our website, if you search up Virginia Beach History Museums, and if you go to our events page or our Facebook or our Instagram, it's just VB Museums. You can find your tickets online there, and our tours start at 6 o'clock for the last 2 weekends of October, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So hopefully you'll come see us. And if you do get spooky pictures while you're on your tour, please tag us. We love to see them.
Yes.
So do share them with us because we do enjoy seeing those.
Yeah, and absolutely share them with us as well here at Wavy TV 10. We'd love to hear your stories about any kind of supernatural goings on or what you may see out there at the Thorogood House or the Lynn Haven House. And we'll probably have you back talking about more about the Lynn Haven House too. That's pretty spooky.
I would love to talk about that more. We do have, if you're interested, we do have preservation tours of our Lynn Haven house every 3rd Thursday at noon, and those are free as well. And if you're looking for more Halloween events, we do have a Day of the Dead event at Ziders Theater the weekend after Halloween, and that is free as well. So definitely come see us for all the Halloween things.
Awesome. All right. Well, Maddy Laing, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you being here talking about the Thorogood House.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time when we scare up another fun episode for y'all. We'll see you then.